Alphabet City is a particular part of the East Village, a neighborhood in the southeastern part of Manhattan. It is located between the avenues A through D longitudinally and between Houston and 14th Street laterally. During the 1960s and 1970s, the East Village was regarded by many as one of the most undesirable places in the city to live. The neighborhood was blighted and decaying, plagued by crime and drug abuse, and littered with abandoned buildings and vacant lots. Working-class white families began leaving the area, and new Hispanic and Chinese immigrants took their place. Beginning in the 1970s and into the 1980s, demographics started changing as students and single persons and members of alternative cultures began becoming attracted to the neighborhood due to its cheap rents and gritty nature. Journalist and author Robert Neuwirth described the situation that gave birth to the squats. In the 1970s, scores of landlords walked away from old tenement buildings. Many buildings slid into vacancy and rot. By the 1980s, squatters took over many of the structures in fringe areas, such as Alphabet City in the Lower East Side.
Just kept on taking over empty buildings. Through the course of 20 years, we had over 30 buildings, our own newspaper, 2 different bookstores, and at one point we even had a radio station that broadcast from a different squat every night.
Actress Rosario Dawson describes her life growing up in a squat.
Well, I grew up in an abandoned building. My mom had moved into the had us moved into the building. I was 2, I believe, 1 or 2, and my brother had just been born, so we were the only kids in the building. There was no water heater, electricity when we first moved in. We had a plywood door for our front door. We had plastic for windows. And my mom learned how to do plumbing and did sewage lines, and my dad, they did electrical together. My dad did construction.
The squatters were a mixed bunch. There were families with children, couples, and single people. Some had regular jobs, others were employed sporadically. The squatters lived in legal limbo. They did not own the buildings and paid no rent, therefore constantly risked eviction. They did not have heating systems, hot water, or even walls in some cases. They could not get electricity or garbage pickups legally, although some managed to get both.
If you have 10 residents in that building, hypothetically 10 people in the building, that's $1,000 per person. Each building did not need $1 million in renovations. Maybe each building could have benefited by maybe $200,000, maybe $100,000 in renovation. Where did the rest of the money go? Whose pocket did the other $900,000 go per building? Now, some people say, well, you kept your building and you didn't get kicked out. Okay, great, but I was paying $100 or $200 a month. Now I'm paying $1,000 a month. Is that a great deal?
I like to think we got legitimized more than we got legalized. And nowadays we got paperwork to stop them, and that makes us legal. But at the same time, it makes us legit, and we're recognized now by just about everybody as people who went out and fought for and won our homes.
The fight to keep their buildings continued on until 2002, when the government of New York City granted ownership of 11 squats on the Lower East Side, including C Squat, to the Urban Homestead Assistance Board, a private not-for-profit organization. Despite keeping their homes, the sense of community has been damaged as the surrounding area continues to gentrify. Over the course of the last decade, the Lower East Side has lost over 8,000 units of low-income housing, with the simultaneous loss of residents in the lowest income group and an increase in those in the highest income group. In addition, rent levels have risen faster than household income in the Lower East Side. Today, a studio apartment can rent for as much as $2,000.
You know what I pay a month rent?
Are you poor?
Yes, and I pay $150 a month rent.
All right, rent control. How long you been living there?
About 7 years.
7 years.
But there's places like this. There's many places in there, and then and New York City is putting up places. I see the poorest people live in the best houses, and they're living good on welfare.
Where?
Now I have a cousin that she's about 70 years old right now, and she live in New York City for 50 years and have never paid over $150 rent. Have 6-room apartment.
How long has she been living there?
For 40 years.
40 years.
Yeah.
There you go.
You're doing this because you want to do this.
No, we're doing this because we don't believe what the system is offering
Yeah,
us.
but you don't have to. That's the point. You don't have to.
But what's the system offering us?
You do not have to live like this.
That's very easy for you to say. You pay $150 a month.
And you can also get a job.
We all work.
That's right.
You
That's
work?
right.
We all work.
You work?
We all
We
work.
all work.
Well, if you're working, you don't have to live like this.
Why not?
I wouldn't even let my dog live in a place like this.
Well, thank you.
Well, then
tell
there's
you.
two
Then I-
words. Bye.
Then I would rather have you leave my property now. Because you insulted me, man, and this is my home. And nobody
But I'm
insults
saying that
my
you don't
home.
have to
No,
live
man. We don't want to talk to you no more. Now,
You don't
just
have to
leave.
live like this.
I said just leave before I stick my dogs on you.
You can't do that.
Well, you know, what do you say, man? That I'm living like a dog?
No,
I'm a human being surviving, man. We
But
don't
you don't
need,
know, but you
look,
don't
I
have to
don't
do
need people like you coming in here trying to tell me that you wouldn't even let your dog live here. These are the ignorant people, man, that don't realize that that same guy that came over here and says that we don't have to live like this, sooner or later, he's going to wind up living in a lot like this because he will not be able to afford the rent.
These people over here talk us down, throw things out the window.
They just
here.
They just bought that
These
building.
people
These people
don't
are getting
realize
evicted.
that they're going to get thrown out.
Then where are they
going
gonna
to
go?
go?